with the Calor Group. Let's now start looking at the group during this last year and seeing where the turnover is generated and where it all gets allocated. First, of course, we must emphasize that being a group structure, each constituent member company has its own balance sheet of profit and loss to prepare before the position of the group can be ascertained. However, we're going to look first at the group as a whole. Philip Colebrook, Calor Group Managing Director.
This is the way Calor's grown. It started as a gas business, but the things that came from that led it into other things, quite logically, quite organically. And of course now it operates in a number of countries too, which helps to spread the base of the business even further. I think this is good. It much greater stability to an organization. And of course in Calor's case, it's a member of a much larger group, the Imperial Continental Gas Association, which has enormous financial strength. Obviously, there are differences between a roadside cafe and a group the size of Calor, but that roadside cafe experiences many of the same types of problems in running its own business that any business does. The things it has to pay for in terms of its raw materials, its wages, its financing costs, and so on, are all the same in any business. And as a matter of fact, the final position of that man, measured in terms of cups of tea, is not at all different from the position of the Calor Group last year. If you can imagine for a minute £1 million cup of tea, that is almost exactly what our position was. We turned over £100 million, not 100 cups of tea. And at the end of the day, we had £1 million left, which represented that cup of tea which we saw the cafe proprietor pour back into his till. There's a difference in size rather than in principle, particularly with respect to the position that that man seemed to be in with regard to his backer. He was paying out something like 4% or 4 cups of tea of his turnover to his shareholder, in effect. In the Calor situation, we're rather more fortunate because our dividend, which we pay to our shareholders, in fact only represents about 1.5 cups of tea, or £1.5 million. The performance of the group is described in the report to employees, which should already be in the hands of everyone who's watching this film now. It's fairly comprehensive, and I really don't think I should try to go into it in detail here. I would just like to draw attention, however, to the first 3 pages. The first page, I think, shows graphically and clearly what happened to our turnover last year, what happened to our 100 cups of tea, how they were consumed, and what was left in terms of profit before taxation at the end of the day. It also shows, and this is important, what the changes have been in the various types of expense that have gobbled up our turnover over the last 5 years. You can see there very easily, for example, that our raw material costs have increased by something like 4 times during that period. That's inflation, of course. And I might add that during the same period, our own prices have only gone up by about double. The second page shows what happens to our profit before tax, how it is distributed, and essentially it goes 3 ways. It goes to the taxman, it goes in a dividend to the shareholders, and what is left is plowed back into the business. Now, what you'll see there on the question of who profits is that the liability to the taxman over the last 5 years has increased by more than 3 times, or about 3.5 times. The amount we've plowed back into the business has increased by 2.5 times. And really, we've only been able to do that by cutting back on the amount that has gone to the shareholders, which has only increased 1.5 times. And really, you know, there's no question about who profits on that page. It's the tax account. The third page, again, asks the question who profits, and it draws a comparison, again in graphic form, between the rate of increase of payment to all of us in the business, all of the employees, and the rate at which the payment to our financiers, our shareholders, has gone up. And there you can see again that it's the shareholders who've come off worst. The employees have done rather better over that period in spite of inflation. The rest of the report, I think, is probably best left for people to study, but it does try to explain where all the money came from, where it went to, and what the variations were in the spread between the different businesses and so on.
Now let's look at the two major constituent parts of the Calor Group. First, the Domestic Management Centre, which consists of the operating companies in Great Britain. The Chief Executive, John Bragg.
Well, about 68% of all the people that work in the group work in the Domestic Management Centre, and about 80% of all the money which the group invested for capital last year was invested in the Domestic Management Centre.
That's quite a large proportion. What, in fact, were the major items of capital expenditure?
Well, cylinders was the biggest single item. We need a very large number of cylinders each year. We also invested in new trailers and equipment to replace old ones and to extend our business. And we spent money on modernising our filling plants, particularly at Grangemouth. We have a very large filling plant which is it's been changed in order to give us a greater throughput and a very much enhanced degree of mechanisation, more than we've got anywhere else. What we've done is we've palletised the plant. That's to say the cylinders come in empty, in pallets, they're mechanically unloaded, go straight through the filling plant, come out again, are mechanically loaded back into the pallets and lifted by a forklift truck onto the tractors, onto the trailers, which are then taken away and delivered in large loads to our customers.
What, in fact, were the various sources of income for the Domestic Management Centre last year?
Well, the gas division is the largest profit-earning centre in the group, and that produced a very good and improved profit last year. The transport division improved their profitability substantially over the year before, and engineering, whilst they didn't improve, stayed in the black. The agriculture division, unfortunately, again produced a loss, and during the year we merged it with the gas division.
In the last year, what have been the significant developments in each of those divisions?
Well, in the gas division, the biggest development must be the extension of the cabin heater market. Over the last few years, we've sold hundreds of thousands of these heaters, and they're scattered throughout the country, and as soon as it begins to get a little cold, they all start to burn gas. So that's been the biggest development there. In transport, they didn't increase the size of their business last year, but they did improve their profitability by holding costs. And in engineering, their biggest achievement was to consolidate their factories at Berry Green and at Chessington, and to hang on in a time when engineering generally was having a bad time.
The companies operating outside Great Britain are grouped in the International Management Centre. The Chief Executive, David Mitchell.
We have businesses in the United States, in Ireland, and in Germany. Altogether, last year, our sales in international amounted to some £28 million, which is nearly 30% of the group's turnover. In Ireland, and this is by far the largest part of our business, we have two companies, one in Northern Ireland, one in the Republic, and they trade under the name Calor Gas. They had a good year last year, and we invested in new capital expenditure in Ireland over £1 million, most of which went into tanks and cylinders and trucks. But additionally, in Belfast, we opened a new transport terminal for distribution, and in the Republic, we started work on a new ocean terminal and tank farm to import gas from the UK for our future growth. In Germany, we also invested over £500,000 in our two businesses there. In Calor Transport International, we obviously bought more vehicles, and in Calor Transport, we're not only moving oil products and gas within Germany itself, but we're also moving products between Germany and the communist bloc countries. In Calor Gas, we opened in Germany, we opened our first Calor Centre, which was in Essen, And we also expanded our storage there because storage and gas supply has been a problem in the past. In the United States, Calor Procile has been sold now throughout the eastern states, through the Corn Belt, and as far west as California. Another part of I must explain there that Calor Procile is the material that we apply to the corn plant when it's harvested that raises its protein level. The other thing we do in the United States is our research company, and there we have been working for the last year, in fact, last year and a half, on developing animal feeds from waste materials. Our first big success has just leaving the lab, and we hope to have it on the market before too long. Next year looks quite good. We've got considerable hopes now in Germany and the United States because the economies are coming out of their recession and are much stronger. And in Ireland, we're organisationally much better off than we have been in the past. So it looks very promising.
And what about next year?
Well, we're going to buy more cylinders next year than we've ever bought before. We're also going to make bigger profits than we ever made before. We're going to need to, because there's a lot of gas coming out of the North Sea, and we're going to have to make profits to justify the investment in the facilities in order that we can get our share, or rather more than our share, of all that gas that's coming to this country.
I'd just like to add to that the fact that without investment, there can be no continuity of employment. We operate in the private sector. We're a private enterprise company. We have to look after ourselves. No one else is going to help us. We don't have any taxes to draw on as a nationalized company does. And the only way we will look after ourselves is by making sure we have enough surplus every year to plow back into the business. So I certainly echo what they say. To me, profits spell reinvestment, and reinvestment spells employment.